What's up, game boys and girls? Big T here, back with another video, and I'm gonna try to make this one as quick as possible. I always say that, and the video ends up being like half an hour. But no, this video is about uh, talking about game developers and how they seem to have forgotten how to be game developers a lot of times. Let me make sure I got this thing going here. Yeah, so um, over the last, I guess, 5 years, probably, especially because of the Series S and to some extent the Nintendo Switch. There's been a lot of hemming and hawing. It's been farther. It's been going back further than that, but definitely since then, there's been a lot of hemming and hawing about, you know, the hardware isn't good enough for us to put our games on it and stuff. I mean, that goes back to, I mean, there's chirping about that during the Wii U and whatnot. And it obviously this is a situation that's going back even further. But basically, this is mostly fueled by fanboys, the ponies, if you will, taking the Series S and kind of using that to vent their vitriol against Xbox. And honestly, I've never understood that. And well, and I think to some extent, some PC guys, or at least guys who pretend to be PC guys, but are mostly in console gamer spaces all the time. They talk about these things, but not the real. I would say not the real PC gamers because they know a little bit better. And I'll get into why. But yeah, so a lot of complaining about the Series S and how it's holding back the generation, and that narrative never made any sense to me because we know that there's problems when it comes to games being put on PC, and good PCs even to this day. I think there's some issues with Borderlands right now. Borderlands 4 has been a staple, a contingent right now about Borderlands just not running as good as it should, that kind of stuff, and that's always been an optimization thing. And but because of the console wars, a lot of the vitriol has been spewed towards the Series S because it's a easy, a easy scapegoat for a lot of these fans to talk about how they're holding back the generation, which is hilarious to me because they're always also saying that nobody cares about X, nobody wants Xbox, but somehow Microsoft has enough pull to affect other games, which I always thought was weird. If Xbox is dead and no one cares, how does Microsoft also have the power to decide how what games, how powerful games, or how utilized the features in games can be? Like, it doesn't make any sense if you just think for 2 seconds how that narrative doesn't make sense. But again, it's just console war, fanboy fuel. And again with Nintendo Switch, to a lesser extent, because we all obviously know the Switch one is not as powerful, and when it does, or when it did get like those ports, those impossible ports, it was a nice surprise. I wasn't overly surprised. I got videos way back saying that the Nintendo Switch 2 is pretty powerful. It just takes time to show that. And I know that based on the history of gaming. You can go back to, I would think you could probably go back further, but I'm thinking like PS1 versus Sega Saturn, right? Specifically. Games on a lot of times PS1 looked better for some reason. Well, I don't want to say for some reason, but there is a reason. They look better, but they shouldn't really have because the power of the Sega Saturn was there the whole time. It's just the architecture was different. But we know that when it was utilized well, there's barely any. I don't think there's maybe Tekken 3 that looks better than Virtua Fighter 2. There's hardly ever any games that looked crazy better than Virtua Fighter 2 on PlayStation. That's going into its whole life. Obviously, Sega Saturn didn't have that life cycle, but the reason for that was that the Sega Saturn didn't sell, and so therefore the lead platform was the PlayStation. And so when it came to porting games to Sega Saturn, they didn't really dive into what the Saturn can do. The Saturn had like what, three processors or something like that, three CPUs, which was kind of insane. And but if you utilize them well, it would be amazing. And one way to prove that is that Shenmue was originally being built for the Sega Saturn, and it looked amazing. I'll probably show some clips here of the game on Sega Saturn before it got moved over to Dreamcast. And you would think, wow, how could that game run on Sega Saturn? Well, that's what happens when you optimize for the hardware. And that is a big problem. A lot of these developers today, they just want to be able to brute force their way onto other platforms. And I don't want to really blame the developers because it's not always all them. It's publishers as well. They want to get games out in a timely fashion, and they don't want their studios hung up, or their development studios hung up on spending extra time on ports that would slow down their release schedule. So that's a business decision. But I think gamers should know better that that's not the case when it comes to actual developing. Maybe if you're younger, but if you're a game fan that's been around a while, I mean, you're 30 something years old, or you're even in your late 20s, you should know better. Especially because, like I said, with the situation with PCs, a lot of times the games just aren't optimized for the PC space, and they don't run great. They get ported over from console, and they don't run great. It's because they're not optimized. Ubisoft, a lot of Ubisoft games have that issue, where the PC ports are a little lackluster, but they eventually get there. And sometimes it's the opposite. Series S or Series X had Starfield, and it came out at 30 frames per second. But after some time, when they were able to optimize the game after it was launched, they got it to 60 frames, and they got all these cool new features added to it. So it's just an optimization thing. It has nothing to do with the hardware itself. Usually, it's just developers, don't want to spend that extra time. You're capable. Yes, it's some. Obviously, the Series S, it is extra work. But what happens a lot of the times is that struggle causes them to realize, oh, they can do something else with the other versions of the game, and they become better. I remember for I think it was for Switch specifically, it was the Alien game. What was the Alien? I can't remember the name of it. The kind of single, not, yeah, it's a single player game, but it was kind of a horror game. Alien Isolation. When they were they were struggling to get it onto Switch, and it actually ended up like looking better, texture wise and whatnot, than the PS4 version. And so they went back to the PS4's version, I believe, and updated that and made it better. And that's what usually happens. That struggle causes them to say, oh, hey, we could do this, or oh, hey, we could do that. And they make the game better. And I just take issue. And obviously, again, it's mostly console wars type of stuff that, these issues happen, or people bringing these things up about the Series S or the Switch, or even the Switch 2. I'm sure that's going to be a thing for Switch 2 as well. But when these companies, or when these developing studios specifically, actually take the time and utilize it and optimize it for that hardware, yes, it's a struggle, but they end up learning some things. And that's one of the problems with diminishing returns with gaming right now, is that all these guys just want to brute force everything because they want to get that that release cadence, and they don't want to spend the time what they used to do back in the day more, which is optimizing for the different platforms and learning. And that struggle, out of that struggle, comes a better game, and that just doesn't happen enough, I think. So yeah, that's mostly my video. That's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What do you think about something like like the Series S, And it's happening over and over again. The struggles and whatnot. Larian Studios when it came to Baldur's Gate 3. Uh, they didn't release it at the same time as they did on the PS5 because I believe Microsoft has this kind of clause where it has to come out on the Series S, and if you want to put it on the Series X at the same time. And so Larian had to delay the game, I think for the two-player split screen co-op or something like that. That didn't work at first, but they eventually got it there, and it works. So it's not so much it can't do it. A lot of times it can do it. Sometimes to a lesser extent, but again, it'll eventually help the studios learn, for one, how to utilize a system better, a piece of hardware better, and it'll make them think better. It's like training on the job. It's like learning on the go, and I think that's just better for these professionals. They should do something they should look forward to. I mean, in indie filmmaking, I love the struggle. I embrace it because it just makes you more creative. It literally does. You get money just getting thrown at you. Instead of that happening, where you just get money thrown at you and hope for the best, you actually have to like think and kind of be creative and figure these things out. So I think that should work for any industry that's a creative industry or art industry, because I think it just will make the final product way better. So that's my take. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you again for watching and listening, and I'll see you fools next time. Peace out.